I've spent my life trying to understand how to develop systems that sustain life. And what we have in the world are systems that do the opposite. The systems are making us more and more sick. The systems are not supporting life, and they're not supporting thriving, and they're not supporting healing. What usually happens, it's sedating the people and then them feeling like here, in order to get support from the government, you need to go through a process in which you are titled handicapped, then you can get a certain amount of money. But if you go back to working, you can't get that money. So you need to keep on being sick in order to get support. That is what's happening in the world. This is the opposite of what sustains life. I have a dream. I think we can open healing centers in Gaza and in Syria and in Egypt. I think this whole region and the whole world needs healing, and needs healing that's healthy. So this is kind of like an innovative model for how we can deal with trauma holistically, combining what we know in psychotherapy and in traumatic intervention, but also with community and also with art and music and body work and somatic work. And all this is coming together into this magical experience.
Hello, Lia Naor.
Hello, Efrat.
So
Good to
good to
see
be
you.
here with you. Thanks for being with me.
I love our conversations. They're always so meaningful.
I know, I love them too. Welcome to another episode of You're the Voice. I have the honor of being here with Lia, who is in the other side of the world right now in Panama, and I'm in Israel at the moment. So it's really cool that we get to connect. For my audience that doesn't know who you are, I'm going to do a quick intro and then we'll dive into a conversation, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so let's do it. So Lia Naor has a PhD in Human Development and Counselling, researches positive transformation, and has a private practice as a nature-based therapist. Lia trains therapists and educators seeking to work with nature through ways of knowing. That's the name of her center for nature-based therapy that she founded and she's managing today. Lia has published many articles in leading academic journals and heads various programs centered on the processes of human development through initiation towards fulfilling potential and deepening our humanity. She founded the Healing Space, which you may have seen if you watched the last episode that we released with Dror Shuach. The Healing Space, an integrative and innovative response for trauma that is nature-based, empowering the individual and the community. And we visited at the Healing Space a few months ago, and this episode is also going to be special like the previous one, where I have two parts. In the first part, Lia and I will have a quick conversation and catch up, and in the second part, I'll actually show you the work that Lia has done at the Healing Center when we met there, and I interviewed her there. So we'll have two parts for this interview. So Lia, give us a quick catch up on where you are today, what you've been doing since the work you started doing after October 7th at the Healing Center.
Yeah. Thank you, Efrat. I think what's important to understand is that on the 7th of October, I had an understanding that the people that were at the music festival were not being treated, of course. There was so much chaos, and they're not a specific community or place. And I guess that everything I learned throughout my life and my expertise and experience pushed me on the 9th to open a nature-based, community-based room for trauma, for healing, but so different than everything we know through the regular Ministry of Health or what health has to offer. And now, in perspective, looking back at what we did in those months and are still doing as a researcher and scientist, I ask myself the big questions of how do we help heal people? And what does becoming healthy, what is it about? What does an ER for trauma, an emotional ER need to have? And how do people heal? So, with the thousands of survivors that I've met within the last months, I think that the knowledge that we are gaining through this work is right for both sides. I have a dream. I think we can open healing centers in Gaza and in Syria and in Egypt. I think this whole region and the whole world needs healing and needs healing that's healthy. So basically, I've spent my life trying to understand how to develop and create systems that sustain life. And what we have in the world are systems that do the opposite. So
Right.
basically, all the systems that we work with, and I come from a system, but the systems are making us more and more sick. And the systems are not supporting life, and they're not supporting thriving, and they're not supporting healing. And I don't know to say what's in back of this, but maybe they just don't know how to do it.
You're the Voice is brought to you by Trezor, the original Bitcoin hardware wallet company pioneering the development of self-custody for crypto assets since 2013, empowering individuals with an open source device, enabling beginners and experts to easily and securely hold their coins. I find my Trezor super easy to use and recommend it to my friends and family. Enjoy my 5% discount on Trezor products by clicking the link in the show notes and using the code FLAT.
So what I'm on now is how do we infuse systems that support and sustain life and thriving? Starting with the fact that educational systems want to connect people to their innate and natural gift, and each one is unique, and each one, to gain meaning in life, needs to know what they have to bring into life and what their gift is. And it's also right with going through trauma or deep, deep damaging like we have now. It's what's the meaning of all this? Is the meaning of all this who's wrong and how do we get back? Or is there an opportunity here personally in what I've gained knowledge about myself through these dark, dark times, things that I didn't know I could do or didn't know I could go through? People that have ligaments cut off, people that have lost family members, people that have lost their homes, people that have lost everything they believe in. And the difference between post trauma or post traumatic growth is the ability to change your basic beliefs in yourself and in life and in systems. So we have an opportunity. Are we going to take it to a place where I can't believe in anybody or anything? And the only thing I can do now is get back or hate or bring more violence? Because that is the biggest risk in
Right.
the world after going through traumatic
Events.
incidents
Yeah.
is violence. And we
Mm.
can see that on the
And we
rise
can see it everywhere.
in the way people talk, in the separative way people think, who's
Yes.
right and who's wrong, and how to. It's integrating into the nitty gritty of our DNA. We have to be so careful of this risk because that violence or who's wrong or who's right is not going to get us anywhere into healing or healthy.
Hmm.
But we also have an opportunity to change our beliefs in what gives us safety.
Hmm.
This started in the corona, right? Okay, everybody's looking for safety all the time. There's no way against viruses, and there's no way against wars. People were attacked in their homes, in their safe rooms, in beyond barbed wire, beyond steel metal doors. Nothing's going to keep us safe. The only way for us to thrive and to make sure that our children are healthy and are well nurtured, and that our elders are listened to, and that people know what their gifts are, and that we know that we can break, but we can also survive. And not only survive, but we can strengthen from what we're going through, is to change our views of
So,
who's supposed to keep us safe, or who's wrongdoing, how things are supposed to look, and go introspective
mhm.
into a wider world view of what are we being called to do now? How do we leave the separate ideas that we're holding and going through more unifying? And the basic question is, what does it mean to be deeply human? What does
And
it mean to,
are those some of the questions that you bring up with the people that you work with and the programs that you do in
yeah,
the last few months?
yes,
Okay.
because most of the survivors felt that they should have died.
Hmm.
And even me personally, after listening for hours and days and months to stories that I don't think hell could even write. This goes beyond anything we can believe that humanity can do to one another.
Hmm.
Anything beyond. It's so such deep cruelty and darkness, that I also ask myself, do I want to be a human in these times? Do I want to be alive in these times? And it wasn't easy to say yes.
Hmm.
And I remember having this discussion with God, and I'm like, okay, if you want me here, then I have to understand, why should I live this life, or how do I live this life? How do you live in such dark times, still connected to that light? But I also feel that there's like this deep crack in consciousness and in humanity and in the earth. And that when you go to the depth of that crack, you can touch creative energy
Right.
that it was not so close before. And it's tangible now, and it's here. And I've felt that in the past 9 months, like I've never felt anything before. And I've done big things in life.
Hmm.
But this was like I had an idea of something that was needed, and then it was there. And I said a sentence to somebody, and then it happened. And it was being able to see 900 volunteers for 6 months, creating a system that had nothing to do with money or control or power, but had to do with people bringing their gifts. Each one did what they knew how to do. Some were drivers, some took out the garbage, some made the food. Nobody felt there was more or less than anybody else. We knew we needed every single person there doing what they were doing. And if I had to pick up the dog's crap in the morning, that was fine, because I wanted it to be a temple for these people. And healing is a sacred journey to go on. And healing is not about somebody telling you how you need to do it. It's about figuring out how you take those parts that have been so fragmented and put them together, not going back to who you were, because
Hmm.
that's another mistake many people make, is how do we get them back? How do we get them back to work? How do we get them back to being who they were? They're not going to be who they were anymore. Their whole world was shattered. Some of them have lost 10, 20 friends. Those people that were out there, and nobody came. Nobody came to help them.
Right.
Who and what are they supposed to believe in now? How do they gain that safety? How do they connect deeply to their body and to the world in a way that maybe goes beyond what we were expecting before?
Hmm.
The police will do this, or the army will do that, or my parents. I think it's asking us to open up to a wider story that goes beyond separative ideas, and even nations, and even borders. Everywhere there are borders in the world, there's weakness.
Mm.
Can we take a global view now of asking ourselves, how do we want to deepen our humanity? And how do we want to bring more healing? And how do we want this light to fight the darkness? I remember telling the survivors on the first Friday evening that we got together, I said, you have seen such darkness that we are going to have to work hard to show you so much light that you're going to believe in. And that's what we did with very, very loving eyes and touch. And I think we are all in a traumatic state of humanity. And I
Mm-hmm.
think everybody feels under threat of some kind, whether it's the global warming or what's happening with the governments or our leaders or what's going to be with our children. I think we all have these questions. And this is calling us to go back into what's natural to us. And that's why I work in nature, because nature takes us back to our roots.
So tell
And
me
it
about
can,
a classic program. What does it look like when you take people out to nature? What do you do with them?
so it's a process of remembering. So it's not only remembering who we are in a deep sense, but it's remembering that we are part of life and we are a member, and that our part in life is unconditional. So it doesn't matter how much money I have or what family I come from or how many friends I have. But my being here, my being alive in this time means there is something I have to give to the world, and I can be of service, and that is going to give me meaning, and that is going to keep my humanity deepen. And
Mm-hmm.
it's unconditional. It's unconditional, that connection.
What kind of activities? What do you do with them during the program?
So it's mindfulness. It's going in and learning to work with our thoughts and our feelings, and it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of making those connections again to everything that has been fragmented. So it starts with trusting our bodies
Mm-hmm.
and our thoughts and our feelings. It has a lot to do with forgiveness and
Mm-hmm.
learning to love those parts of us that maybe didn't act as we expected, and forgiving those who were there and those who were not there, and leaving our heart and our grief and our pain soft and
Mm-hmm.
open, because
Wow.
it's really easy after going through hard times to have a stone heart and to build up walls.
Of
And
course.
there's so many logical reasons for that.
Of
Nobody
course.
was there, and you see what I lost. There are so many logical reasons not to love. So
Sure.
many logical reasons. And the risk of having a, a heart of stone is that we will be so shattered and so violent to one another that we will lose connection to what it means to be human, and we will lose the softness, and we will lose the ability to see beauty in others and in life. So in all the programs I do, it works on opening the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going beyond the mind that's telling
Right.
us keep up those walls, and I'm inviting people to feel the pain, to feel
Great.
the distrust, to feel the forgiveness, to feel the most difficult, harsh feelings that we have of ourselves and others in an environment that is very, very safe, very loving, and no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody I talk to has judgment, right? About how things are supposed to be.
I
You
know.
know, Rumi says, beyond right or wrong, there is an area I will meet you there. That is healing space.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond wrong or right, there is a healing space. If we want healing, we have to be in an unjudgmental space of just, can I see you seeing me seeing you? Can we breathe together? Can we feel each other's hearts? This goes beyond what I did or I didn't do, or what you did or what you didn't do. This is being human, and we all make mistakes. And I think that people make a mistake thinking that forgiveness means we're gonna do wrong again. No,
Hmm. Hmm.
forgiveness means we can keep our heart warm. And this means we need to feel the pain. So in my programs, we have an unconditional and unjudgmental loving space that we open. We probe the people to be willing to share their deepest fears and feelings and grieve together. And that it's okay to grieve. People don't know how to grieve. We're in a hero society. Tough it up. Good for you. You went through that and you're back to normal. You had a miscarriage and you're in work the next day. Good for you. No, that's not good for you. No, that's not good for you. So yes, we need to some kind of buffer zone for what we're going through because
Yeah.
the pain is too big, but we need to be able to feel. What?
Each program, how long are they?
All
Or
different programs,
different
but
ones? Okay.
but for a retreat, people will usually come for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of this going on within nature, and nature opens the wider perspective to life. So it's not all about me and my personal drama.
Right.
And it's also about seeing in nature, you see so much death and things that are shattered and are scattered, but all together, it looks beautiful and it works. And so our environments have a lot of say on who we are and how we are. So when we're in nature, we're in a healing environment
Mm-hmm.
that's always looking, everything in nature is always looking to grow and always looking to connect, whether it's to the sun, to healing energy, or to the sources of water that are underneath. Everything is always looking for what's healthy. So when we're in that atmosphere, we can feel more normal about being broken, being forgiving, seeing the wider picture, and being in a place that's always changing. It's chaotic. What's natural, what's growing, what's learning, and what is chaotic.
Yeah.
So we're always looking for equilibrium, but nothing in the world naturally develops through equilibrium. Life develops through things being chaotic and then
Mm-hmm.
going back to stability and being chaotic and going back to stability. And like the butterfly, right? So it has to die as a caterpillar before it can grow its wings. The seed has to collapse as a seed before the plant can grow. That's how everything in nature is, and that's how we are too. But we'll do everything not to be broken. So healing space is a place that you come into, and it's kind of like a temple, and that's the way I
Mm-hmm.
treat it. It has to be beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
not like a hospital. So you have to come in. If you're coming for a healing, you need to walk into a place that accepts you not as something's wrong with you and not as you're lacking, but you are being ushered into a beautiful opportunity, which is very, very painful. But
Mm-hmm.
here you can change from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Here you can gain wings. Here you can go beyond everything you thought of yourself or how things should be or what's right or wrong. And this is, I'm saying it to myself and I'm saying it to all of us and I'm saying it to those who are so shattered now. Are we going to take this opportunity to gain wings, to go
Yep.
beyond what we thought? Or are we going to be judgmental and be violent and gain more and more hate and more fear? And that's going to take us to hell very, very, very easily and very naturally.
I agree. Leah, and the healing center, you have a big vision for it. You see it expanding in the future to any place that really people need a good source of healing that comes from a new, compassionate point of view and not through the old fashioned system that in many ways we know have failed us until today. And so, what is your vision? How do you see this evolving to become something that could touch many people in many places around the world?
That's a great question. I'm going to give you a big answer. My vision is to create a mental health system that understands health not as not having symptoms
Hmm.
or not as being able to go back to work, but health as being able to feel, health as being able to change, health as being able to grow, health as being able to, as a community, incorporate and love and accept and be soft with those who are broken and those who are being challenged and those who are going through the dark night of the soul. It's okay. It's okay to be very upset and maybe at times dysfunctional and maybe at times depressed when this is what's going on in the world. So I
Hmm.
think it's healthy to be sad
Hmm.
right now. And I think it's healthy to grieve. And I think it's okay if you burst out crying
Yeah.
sometimes. I think it's
Yeah.
okay. So I think being healthy has to do with how can we sustain our humanness and how can we find our unique gifts to the world and how we can be accepting of our different parts and how we can keep our hearts open and warm in spite of everything that's going. I think that's what health means. So I am now sitting with researchers and doctors and scientists around the world using connecting quantum physics and biology and systems theory, thinking of how we can create systems where people can thrive as individuals and communities even though we're broken and even though so many of us need that healing. But I think this is a global vision. So
Yeah.
basically, what I'm intent on doing now is opening more and more of these healing spaces and healing centers around the world. We have opened also five of these healing spaces for grieving in Israel, where
Mm.
people get together and understand that grieving is a holy threshold that needs to be held beautifully. And
Hmm.
that to grieve, we need to hold beauty and sacredness and meaning and community. But until now, healing and grieving is something that people do alone in their bedrooms and try to overcome it. And that's not right. That just keeps us more lonely and more separate. So we need spaces that are beautiful
Right.
to bring our what's broken and to cry together and to hug together and to dance together because there's life energy in that deep, deep pain.
Yeah.
And we want to use that. We don't want to be just happy, happy, happy. It's
Yeah, like
okay.
exactly like people will see now in the second part when we'll show them some of the footage from the healing center and what you've created there, and they'll learn more about how people actually did that during that very rough time right after October 7th. So that would be the second part. And Leah,
And you
for
know,
for
Efrat,
that,
what so
yeah.
many people told me when they came is it looks like a festival.
Yeah, I
And they like,
know.
we're taking shots. And I said, this is a hospital.
Yeah,
But this
people
is a
don't get
healthy
that.
hospital. So we
Exactly.
had psychiatrists, we had doctors, we had social workers, we had psychologists working in the most professional way possible.
Well, they look at it and they can't fathom that that's a way of bringing healing to themselves and their bodies. It looks to them like something you do when you're happy. And yeah, you need support for that. Do you want people to contact you? Is there a good place to contact you?
We have a website and we
We'll put the link to it in the show
would
notes.
love
Yeah.
contributions of any kind. And I can be contacted. And anybody who wants to support creating new life systems that sustain life.
Mhm.
And specifically, I'm within the mental health, but we need this in education, and we need this in global services
So you
and
need
in
like
everything.
different
But
types of connections and people who have different expertise, right? Like
right,
multidisciplinary
right,
areas.
right.
Okay, great.
So it's built. It's right now. It's creating the web of
Yep.
life that can build a new mental health system that the world can use in a way that is very sacred, beautiful, accepting, non judgmental, and healthy, can become more whole and healthy instead of what usually happens, which is the opposite. It's sedating the people,
Yeah.
and then them feeling like here, in order to get support from the government, you need to go through a process that in which you are
Weekend.
you are titled a handicapped,
Yep.
and when you are titled handicapped, then you can get a certain amount of money, and then you can, but if you go back to working, you can't get that money. So you need to keep on being sick in order to get support. That is what's happening in the world. This is the opposite of what sustains life. We need to
Wow.
support people that go back to
Right. What a
being in service.
paradox, huh? The system encourages you to
That's what the
be
systems
weaker
know.
and sicker and more dependent.
And we want to empower them.
Yeah, sounds like the complete opposite. So, if anyone has a will to build the future of mental health with Leah, please reach out through the website. It's in the show notes. And Leah, any last words of hope just before we pop into the second part?
I'm infused with hope and excitement at this time. I feel that, as I said before, within this deep, deep fragmentation, um, there are so many opportunities, and they're just waiting for us to open our eyes and to say we are going to choose life, and we're going to choose healing, and we're going to choose to really open our hearts. And I think that that's the only way something can be different here. The
I
only way.
agree.
I even have a little dream of just infusing all the government offices and all Gaza and Israel with MD in the water. Just MD and down their guns. Maybe people will see a different way of, but it starts with, if our hearts are closed, then we can't do this, right? So it's starting with opening our hearts and being able to feel the pain on all sides, on just what it means to be human today, and then taking the next step, which needs to be very, very brave, of no judgments and choosing life and what that means. And there are so many people that are right now not really alive, even though they are alive. And this is a time where we need to know that we can walk around death. We can walk around being dead. So we have an opportunity to actually choose, and this is what's offered to us today. Thank you, Efrat, for showing this and giving
Thank
this
you. Thank
time,
you so
and
much
for
for
doing
those.
your important sacred work in life.
Leah, thank you for those words of wisdom and your big vision. And I'm very honored to share your vision forward on my platform. So yeah, hopefully people will open their hearts and open their minds, and those who can open their wallets or their connections to Leah and her team, and find the connections on the link in the show notes. And thank you so much. We'll be in touch and we'll do
Thank
this
you.
soon again, Leah. Good luck. My life was saved on October 7th, but my soul was saved here today. These are the words of one of the survivors from October 7th massacre during the Nova Party. I came here today to the space where that survivor and others came also in the days following the October 7th events. Those young people who only wanted to have fun and live their lives have had to face crazy traumas from that day. And some very special people came together in order to offer these people the help they needed. So today I'm at the Healing Space, a center for immediate integrative response to trauma. And I have the honor of sitting with Lia Naor, who is the president and founder of this amazing initiative. Thank you for welcoming me to this amazing healing space.
Don't we all need it?
We all think just other people need it, but all of us need it. I was here a week ago or so, and you welcomed me here for the first time. And when I stepped foot here, I think I then understood what you were telling me for a couple of months now.
Yeah.
You just said, come here, you'll feel it, you'll feel it. And when I came here, I felt it.
Yeah.
The energies, the space, the hug, the safety that people can feel here. And so maybe we'll start with you telling us what this space is all about, and then we'll go into your personal story and how you got to do this.
Yeah. So this is a place that's informal but very professional and integrative and community-based, but also very connected to the natural world, that offers people a place, a haven of goodness and serenity, a place to just be, to calm the nervous system, to calm the body, a place that's not sterile or superficial or owned by one professional or another. We need places that are community-based, that people can come to. In Israel, there is a lot of stigma about getting mental health professional. A lot of the trauma centers are situated in hospitals.
That's where most people go to after a tragic event?
Most people don't go.
They don't go anywhere, really?
The youth that don't want to be stigmatized or have trouble bringing themselves to a place like this would rather try to treat themselves, which usually doesn't happen. And I think that's one of the special things about this place, is that it doesn't have any stigma, and it doesn't have it's really okay to not be okay here. It's really okay. And we started with the survivors from the Nova Festival massacre, young people that were out to celebrate life, which made the trauma so much more complex. A lot of them were also in states of altered consciousness, and it's just
because of substances they took?
Okay. Just like a regular
they were still
trance
under
party. And they were a minute before the sunrise. That's a big part of the party. It's like the height, the peak of celebrating life and waiting for the sun to come up. And all of a sudden heard missiles, and for a lot of them it took a long time to understand that this wasn't the music and this wasn't part of the celebration. And then to be just faced with horrendous horrors of, I don't even want to speak about it here, but just like bodies and massacres and rape and just such awful within the state, left more than 3,500 people that were at these parties, and their parents and their relatives that they were on the phone with for hours, not knowing if they would survive or not. And those hours when parents can't even come to help or save their children, and the feeling of being betrayed by the children that didn't understand why nobody was coming to help them. So it's all that together. And the first thing I realized on the 8th of October is that these people need to be held. They're not situated in a special area as a community, and so there is nothing that's being offered to them. And we know that only 20% of people that go through traumatic events develop post-trauma.
Okay.
But that has to do with how much you're contained and get professional help immediately. And so immediate was really what I wanted.
So there's a
that was
critical
so important.
emphasis on the timing.
Right. So there's a window opportunity that we're still going through, because and this is also what makes it more complex, the trauma hasn't stopped. We're still at war. We're still losing people every day. We're still under the danger of our existence, people are still don't have a home to go to. We still are hearing the missiles every day. So it's this ongoing collective trauma that within this big darkness, I remember telling them the first days, the immensity of the darkness you felt is the immensity of light we want you to feel here, and goodness we want you to feel here.
Right.
And to know that there are people that can accept you and hold you and that you can trust in. And it starts, there's so much fragmentation with trauma. So it starts with trusting our bodies, and then it starts with trusting others. And you could really see within the first days when they came, so dead. There was nothing alive about them. There was this hollowness in their eyes. They were darkness. Like death was stuck to them. And how the only thing I could talk about the first few days were beanbags. Just bring me beanbags. I just wanted that softness. I wanted them to be held. I wanted them to feel that something could envelop them that was soft. And then we started reaching out. That's the kind of therapy we do here. So it's very different from hierarchical or anything we know. It's them sitting. And then they couldn't be verbal at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So we brought in music, and we brought in soccer balls, and we brought in hammocks, and we did everything we could we know that healing, just as the trauma is in the body, as in the nervous system, as in the soul and the psyche, the healing has to be the same. It has to be integrative. It has to be body, mind, soul. So we had all these different networks of openings, of offerings in a way, so they could be sculpting and then get connected to different parts of their soul or psyche, or they could be singing, and we could be there right after they got the reflexology when things open up to meet them and to speak with them and to see what's going on. But basically it's this big containing environment where you can come to be and to heal. But you have the agency to decide how you want to heal. It might be to talk to a therapist, but it also might be to just sit with your friends. And
so the choice is theirs.
The choice is theirs.
How they go through a process here.
Their healing process, right?
Yeah, because they come here, they say, I need help, or I want to be around people that are like-minded or going through the same thing.
Or they don't even know.
They don't even know what they want.
They hear there's a place that they can be, and that nobody will judge them in, and that there's goodness.
Amazing.
And that they can quiet their system down, and then they can choose. And we know that trauma is about feeling helpless. And here they get the agency. You are the boss of your healing process.
That's very different to what they would experience in traditional systems, right? And I know that you told me about 2,500 survivors already passed through 3,500 passed through this place. And we're not talking about just survivors, right?
So we're talking about the immediate family members that have been very traumatized, or that don't know what to do with them. And we're talking about the parents that have group therapy here.
Right.
And we're also talking about the parents of the ones that lost their children at the party and that also need support. So there are a lot of circles
around them that you are taking care of.
And today it's not only the survivors of the Nova. We're working with police and investigators and people that have the front-up caregivers.
Yes.
The immediate caregivers at that time that faced atrocities, human atrocities that are beyond what we can imagine. And that even just seeing the pictures or seeing the bodies is enough to be very deeply traumatized. And we don't want people that are dysfunctional. And so as much as possible, if we can get in as soon as possible and help them connect and take on responsibility and agency for their healing and offer them the different ways of connecting what has been so fragmented, and based in community and in this beautiful area of nature with many, many professional people that are here to hold and help whatever is needed.
So what type of healers and therapists did you have here?
So we have...
and how many? Hundreds, right?
Yeah, we've probably had around 400 therapists.
All volunteering?
Everybody's volunteering, 900 volunteers.
Wow.
So we have psychologists, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, and social workers. But we also have body therapists that are doing body work with the people. And we have many, many different people that are leading beautiful and very deep workshops. So it's sculpting, and it's making music, and it's doing art, and it's writing poetry, and it's doing acrobalance and connecting back to being trusting others.
Yes.
And it's lying in hammocks and just letting my body feel. And it's working with the keepers of the garden that are doing with them work with the ground and with earth and with touching the
Soil.
earth and weaving. And so it stops the loop of thinking, because what happens in trauma is we get stuck in the traumatic event. It doesn't matter how much time we are after that. Our psyche is still doing those loops of what happened and how it happened, and that stops once we start using our fingers or hearing music. And so we're trying to get them be in the here and now and expand that narrative of who you were before, what happened then, but also who you want to be, and in event of that, still what you want to become and who you are becoming, and maybe what you found out about yourself that's important for you and that's true to you. And most of them feel that the person they were before is dead.
Wow.
But we're working with them on what is your identity now. And so we also have 4-day workshops with them. It's the workshop of how we can become a supporter of life. That's the name of the workshop. And so instead of just being supported, how you become a supporter. Because once you can help another person, that is really empowering. And a lot of the people with us are volunteering with us. And
Wow.
that's so beautiful.
Beautiful.
So they're working.
Giving them power back. by
Yeah,
helping others.
and that's their way to thank us for
Yes.
those first weeks. And
Okay, so
and-
the healing center. Sorry, I really want to understand this. The healing center, which is having here thousands of people with hundreds of volunteers, is operating on a daily basis, every day. People don't sleep over here, right?
No.
They come in and they go.
they come in for a few hours and they go. And if there are organized groups, so they come like from the morning until the afternoon. And for like the survivors of the music festivals, we still have 3 evenings a week,
Right.
and group therapy that they can come
Right.
to. But we're already getting them into volunteer and already working with us. So it's kind of getting them back to life.
And because you want to bring them back to life, they're not here all day,
Right.
right? So
Right.
it's only
so
limited.
we're minimizing that. Yeah.
Okay, so with time, it's less and less hours that they
Exactly,
spend here. That's why
exactly.
we're here, like on our own, more or less, and
Right.
it's lunchtime, so
Right.
they'll come later.
They'll come later, and we're already open to get other groups that really, really need this. And
Got it.
the vision is that every municipality will have a
Yes.
healing space,
Right.
and it will be community based.
Right.
So the community will know how to hold this, and they know each other. And then the people from the community will be the therapists and the body workers and the ones doing art and whatever with them. But also it could be the grandmas making the cakes and making the food and bringing that in. And the people that already feel that they have more of their power back can already volunteer with them, so that there's this flow. And that's what we felt here. And I told them, you don't have to thank me. I need to thank you, because I have no idea how I would have gotten through this period if I wasn't here giving and I
Yeah.
wasn't being meaningful in this time where I lost everything. Everything is broken. We've lost trust in who we are in humanity and what
Yes.
we can do and how we can save ourselves or be safe. So that's what we want to change, is this flow, is there's not this hierarchy between the health givers and the people who are patients. We call them guests. You're the guests, we're the caregivers, but we're all,
Amazing.
both, we're here because you're here and you're here because, and we also, what happened that was really important is that the therapists felt that they were also a community. And we were working together and hearing such awful, awful stories, but we knew that at lunchtime we would meet and that we would have supervision in the evening. And that in the morning we have workshops that empower us. And so we're not alone in our clinics, in our sterile clinics looking at the clock. There are not enough therapists in the land of Israel to treat 9 million people. So everything needs to be group-based, community-based. And if we help each other, we're empowering each other. And the vision is that over the whole land of Israel, and hopefully in the whole world, we can have healing spaces that first will give immediate response that's integrative for trauma, and that's informal, it doesn't have that stigma and doesn't have that hierarchy within it, but also that this will also be a place to grieve. We don't know how to grieve.
Right.
We're always like, stick it up, be strong,
Israelis
you can
especially,
get.
we're so good at going through emergencies and traumas and tragedies, and we never have time to actually process that because the next thing is coming.
And
even
if we have
of
time,
the culture, I
right?
think.
And even if we have time, we're kind of in that heroic kind of state of
no
mind.
one has ever taught me
get
or
strong,
us
be strong.
exactly of how to really be sad or how to be mad or how to process my anger.
Right.
No one has ever taught me that.
Right.
It's all the opposite here in Israel, especially because
You go to the army and you got to be strong, right?
Yeah.
The soldiers
Yeah.
have to be strong, and most of us go to the army.
And we're so scared. And it's not only here, it's the whole modern society. We're so scared
of showing
to break open.
right.
And what's gonna happen? And we're gonna become a mess. And so instead of that, we kind of put up all our defenses, but then we become cold, and our hearts become cold. And because we don't know how to deeply feel, because it's too much to go through.
Yes.
Alone, and that also has to be community work, and that's what all the different tribes in the world know how to do. But because we've forgotten that, and we think we have to go, so we have to medicate ourselves so that we don't feel. But then it comes out in violence, and it comes out in addictions, and it comes out in aggression, and it comes out in such awful ways. We don't want to get there because that's the next step of what's going to happen to us. So I see the frontier here in Israel, but also in the world. If we want to keep ourselves deeply human, we need to feel the depths of our grief and of our darkness and of our sadness and of our sorrow, and we need to do that together in a way that's holy, but also in a way that sustains life. So we don't want that to just break us apart, but we want that to fertilize our ground. And just like Thich Nhat Hanh said, no mud, no lotus.
What does that mean?
When you don't have the compost, then you don't have the seeds that can grow into the flowers. You need that processing, and we in modern society don't teach that.
And you can't skip any step.
You can't skip. You
any
can,
step in the
but
process.
it works really bad.
That's what I always tell people when they ask me about how is it to live in Israel, and I say it's like it's living inside the fire. And now it's my choice what I do with that.
Right.
Do I stick my head in the sand and ignore everything that's going around me?
Right.
Or do I go through the fire
Right.
to become stronger from it? And I have to teach myself how to go through the fire. And this is what you're doing with these people here. You're giving them the tools and showing them that it's possible to go through this hell, but to come out of it from the other side stronger and better and capable of dealing with life. And that's a gift, and your vision, and I hear it when you speak, and I see it in what you're manifesting here and creating here. So here's where I want to ask you, Lia, how did you get to this, and what is your personal journey that led you to doing this, to coming up with this amazing, unusual and amazing vision and bringing it to life? So where did Lia start?
So maybe I'll just say that mental health today is discussed not as the absence of a symptom, like Freudian thought, but more as how whole and healed we are. So holding has to do with knowing our different facets, our different part, and being able to live with them and express them in a way that we have harmony and dialogue between our different parts. So I've spent the past 20 years of my life as a nature-based therapist, working in nature, taking people out, mostly to processes of personal initiation. And what that means is what we're going through now as a collective is what we call a rough initiation. It's not supposed to be like that.
Very rough.
But initiation is always has to do with going to your limits and beyond, so that you can develop your qualities and you can gain a deep insight and understanding of what your meaning and purpose is in the world. And without that, it's really, really easy for somebody else to tell you what you need to be and how you need to be. And the only way to be free in this world, and the only way to hold a center, even there's endless chaos around, or whatever people try to
Throw it.
fill with fear,
Yes.
there's so much of that, is to know that this is my unique gift that I have brought to the world, and this is what I need to do. So in nature-based societies, before a child is born, the mother gets in touch with the soul of that child, and that's the name that that child is given. Or as the child in the first years develops, the elders will look at the child, they'll see what he's good at, and that is the name that he will be given. So it's what's in your nature. It's what you know how to do best. It's what comes easy to you to do.
Yeah.
That's your gift. And
Right.
without you developing and bringing that gift to the world, the community will be in loss of that. So there is no question about, can I live a meaningful life? No. If you bring your gift, which is your name, so if you forget, when every time you're called, you'll know your gift, right? So if every time I call out your name, I say speaking truth instead of saying Efrat, you won't forget what you're supposed to do in this life. Or my name is walking people through the dark. If you call me, hey, walking people through the dark, how are you today? I'll remember, even if I have a hard day, that I know how to walk people through the dark, and I'll be on it, that's what I'm doing. So basically, that's what I've developed, and I think we need process of initiation more than we need therapy. I think that's where people lose it, and I think that it's getting out from the personal story and getting into the story that wants to live through me, for how I am in service of humanity and what it means to be deeply human in these times. And you talk about becoming stronger by being able to feel, but that means being able to feel both sides. Winning this war by killing the other, it's understanding that by killing the others, we are deeply wounding ourselves. And that this idea of what it means to be a hero, or what it means to win, or what it means to be normal, or what it means to be healthy is fucked up. Can I say that?
Yeah, oh yeah, you can say fuck that.
And there's so much disinformation and messing up in what it means to be human and what it means to be a hero. And when people go through these processes of deep initiation, and they understand what their strength is and what their gift is, it doesn't really matter what's going on outside. If I'm disappointing my parents or the people, I'm on it to live my strength.
So where did you start doing that? Thinking that,
It's a
holding
long
that
story.
as a philosophy of life?
I never felt that I belonged. I grew up in Berkeley, California, and I moved with my parents to Israel when I was young, to an ultra-Orthodox home, and I never fitted in. And then I decided that I wanted to fight for my country, and so even though I came from a religious family, I became a soldier, and even there I didn't feel like I fitted in. And then I went to live in the desert and started as a nature guide. I wasn't fitting in until I deeply connected with nature, and I felt so at home. And I felt, you know what? Maybe I don't really belong to this kind of family, and maybe I don't find my family of people but I belong to something that's a lot bigger than me. And that gave me such a deep sense of connection and belonging that was unconditional, that I felt that this is the gift that I want to give others. And I think, and since then, I've been taking people out into nature to find their unconditional belonging. And so this comes with learning social work and then drama therapy, and I have a PhD in human counseling and human development. My PhD is I built a model, a working model for nature-based therapy, where you work with nature as a co. So it's kind of working with mystery as a co, because you can't really, right, talk to them in the language that we talk to. But there's something bigger than us that's working on us, and if we can know how to be in relationship with that, and we can surrender to everything we know in our head, but get a bigger feeling of what's going on in the field and what needs, then we can do it right. And that's the way I see healing and therapy. And this is where the 7th of October met me. So in that moment, when I said we need these people to come, I knew they needed beanbags, and I knew they needed nature, and I knew they needed loving, kind, generous eyes. And by meeting their hearts, and by being with them in that state and just witnessing and just being with them, but also holding the professionality of, this is not the time to go deeply into the story of their trauma. And this is not, and knowing what the boundaries are and where to go and how to go, and then listening to them. So there was a certain point where we felt that they were kind of seeking into the beanbags. And then I said, take out the beanbags. Put away the beanbags. We're doing just workshops now. And so it's changing the setting while feeling the field to provide, but it wasn't saying them, you can't sit in the beanbags anymore.
Yeah, of course.
It wasn't top over. It's not, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. No, I'm just going to change the setting, and then you're going to bring yourself up to that place of what it means now to develop into your better self. People that on the 7th of October, their lives stopped. People were at the party in Re'im in a very, very traumatic situation. We called them into an area, to healing space, maybe one of the first healing spaces, which is kind of like a ER for trauma in nature. So this is kind of like an innovative model for how we can deal with trauma holistically, combining what we know in psychotherapy and in traumatic intervention, but also with community, and also with art and music and body work and somatic work. And all this is coming together into this magical experience. Some of them say that after being here, they can sleep for the first time. They can eat for the first time. We have herbalists. We have people touching them in a way that's very, very grounding. And they're bringing them alive in a way that's so experiential, unique, holistic, and full of love. And we just would love any support we can get to keep this going throughout the whole land of Israel, which so much is in need for this kind of trauma work. Thank you.